the widowed millionaire saw his nanny bathe his twins in a barrel, and he fell in love with her. Emily Reyes, 26 years old, leaned over a rusty metal tub nestled in the middle of a blooming garden behind a luxury estate in Silver Hills. She gently poured warm water over little Leo's head while Liam giggled, splashing his tiny hands into the soapy water. The morning sun streamed through the leaves, bathing the twins in soft golden light. With every tender motion, Emily looked more like a mother than a nanny. She softly hummed a lullaby, using her free hand to wash Leo's back, occasionally glancing at Liam to make sure he didn't slip. Everything might have stayed peaceful, if not for the sudden arrival of Benjamin Carter's electric car rolling onto the stone-paved driveway, nearly an hour earlier than expected. The founder of a multi-million-dollar tech company, Benjamin had just left an investor meeting ahead of schedule. Exhausted, stressed, and eager to check in at home, he stepped out of his car. The sound of childish laughter drifting from the backyard caught his attention. He walked around the mansion, and what he saw froze him in place. Emily was bathing his children, not in a clean indoor bathtub, but in an old metal tub right in the middle of the yard. Leo and Liam, his 18-month-old twin boys, were dripping wet, completely naked under the open sky, splashing around as if nothing was wrong. Benjamin's face flushed with rage. He stormed toward her and shouted, "What the hell are you doing with my kids?" His voice cracked through the peaceful air like a thunderclap. Emily flinched, nearly dropping Leo. The twins immediately burst into tears, their giggles replaced by sharp cries that mingled with the water. "Mr. Carter." "I can explain, please?" Emily clutched both boys close, trembling. Benjamin stared at the tub in disbelief. "Do you think my sons are dogs? How could you bathe them in this rusty thing like animals?" His voice trembled with fury. Emily fought back tears, pleading, "The water's been shut off since yesterday. I didn't want the boys to get rashes. I brought clean water from the neighbor's well. I don't want to hear excuses." Benjamin cut her off coldly. "Pack your things and get out of my house. I never want to see you near my children again." Emily stood frozen. His words sliced through her like knives. She looked down at Leo and Liam, two precious souls she loved like her own, now crying in her arms. Fired for an act of compassion, humiliated like she was reckless or dangerous. "Please," she choked, "at least let me dress them first. It's cold. They could get sick. I'll do it." "Get out." Benjamin grabbed a towel and wrapped it around the twins clumsily. Emily watched as he marched back into the house with them, never once looking back. She remained standing there, her arms empty, her heart shattered. Tears fell silently onto the garden soil, right beside the still warm metal tub. Emily ran into the small room in the back, where she lived, grabbed her cardboard suitcase, and returned to say goodbye to the twins. But Benjamin Carter had already taken them inside. She touched the metal tub one last time, remembering all the time she had gently bathed the boys there whenever the water was cut off. Harold, the 62-year-old gardener who had worked at the house for 15 years, stepped into the garden with a sorrowful expression. "Emily, my dear, this is so unfair," he said as he removed his hat. "I saw everything from the kitchen window." "I didn't do anything wrong." "I know. Thank you. You're a good person." Emily hugged Harold like she was embracing an old father. "Listen, my child. The boss is blinded by anger and pain. The company is bankrupt. His wife left, abandoning the little ones. He's not thinking clearly." "But I can't go back. He humiliated me, said I treated the kids like animals. I just wanted to bathe them. They had diaper rashes, and the water was—" "I know, sweetheart. You've been the best thing that ever happened to those boys. Before you came, they cried all the time. The neighbors even filed complaints with the local authorities." Emily burst into tears and pulled her suitcase away as she left. Emily sat in the small guest room of Mrs. Althea's house, just 3 doors down from the Silver Hills estate. On her lap rested an old suitcase containing a few sets of clothes, a handkerchief from her mother, and a faded photo of her and her siblings as children. Her hands trembled slightly, but her face held a strange calmness. She wasn't crying anymore. No more tears. Maybe it was because the pain was too deep, or maybe because she had grown used to being cast aside when she was no longer convenient. Mrs. Althea placed a cup of chamomile tea in front of her gently. "You can stay here for a few days until you figure out your next step." Emily gave a soft smile, her voice quiet. "Thank you. I won't stay long. Just a few days to collect myself." Mrs. Althea didn't pry. Her eyes held the kind of understanding only those who've suffered carry. She knew Emily well, the young woman who always carried the gaze of someone who had grown up far too early. Emily had lost both parents in a car accident when she was just 15. She and her 3 younger siblings were taken in by her eldest sister, Mariana, who was only 20 at the time and already had 2 kids of her own. Life was already hard. Adding 4 mouths to feed made it suffocating. Soon, Emily became the unpaid housemaid of her sister's home. She cooked, cleaned, watched over the children without ever receiving a single dollar. Any protest was met with, "You're lucky you have a roof over your head." She endured. She never went back to school, never had friends, never dared to dream. But she loved her nieces and nephews as her own, taking care of them to make up for her real siblings who were sent to distant relatives. Things truly fell apart when Mariana's husband, an aggressive man who drank too much, began behaving inappropriately toward Emily. One night, she quietly packed her things and left without saying goodbye. She preferred starting from nothing over spending one more day living in fear. The babysitting ad she found was her first real opportunity after months of struggling to survive through odd jobs, washing dishes, cleaning houses, handing out flyers. She came to Benjamin Carter's house with just one clean outfit, neatly tied hair, and honest eyes. Benjamin at the time was overwhelmed. His twin boys, Leo and Liam, only 8 months old, cried nonstop. All previous nannies had quit within a week. Emily had no formal background, no degrees, no references. But Benjamin didn't care. All he needed was someone, anyone, who could calm the twins. On her very first day, Emily noticed that Leo was allergic to the formula. His belly was bloated, his skin irritated. Without asking, she spent her first paycheck on fresh goat's milk from the market and tried it. Within days, he improved drastically. Liam suffered from acid reflux. He couldn't sleep and vomited often. Emily propped up the crib mattress with folded towels. The baby started sleeping peacefully again. She didn't say anything. She didn't boast. She just did what needed to be done. And for the first time in months, the boys began to laugh. Emily even transformed the tiny back room of the estate. With scrap fabric, she sewed curtains. With old bottles and paint, she made crib mobiles. The room became as warm and inviting as her heart, quiet but filled with love. Benjamin didn't notice. He was always busy, buried in work. But even he started sleeping better, without understanding why. Since Emily arrived, the house had grown quieter, calmer. There was only one person unhappy, Mrs. Clarissa, the longtime housekeeper. She had once been the one to care for the twins, though she had no skill or patience. Seeing Emily succeed filled her with resentment. "That girl seems sweet, but who knows? I saw her poking around your office," Clarissa whispered one morning. In truth, Emily had simply brought Benjamin his water and arranged his scattered blood pressure pills, something Clarissa had never bothered to do. But from that day on, a seed of doubt was planted in Benjamin's mind. Small, but just enough to be fanned into flames when he later saw the metal tub in the garden. And that's when everything collapsed. Just 3 days after Emily left the mansion, Benjamin began to feel her absence more deeply than he could have imagined. Leo and Liam would not stop crying. At first he thought it was normal, a transition period with a new caregiver. But then the cries turned into hours of screaming, skipped meals, sleepless nights, and chaotic energy that filled every corner of the house. Benjamin, the sharp-minded CEO who could manage a team of hundreds, found himself completely helpless inside his own home. He called 3 of the most elite nanny agencies in the city and hired the best candidates, nannies with degrees, years of experience, and polished professionalism. The first was a woman in her 40s, punctual and neatly dressed. She kept detailed notes and enforced a strict schedule. 7 a.m. bath, 8 a.m. bottle, 9 a.m. nap. No picking up babies unless it's on the clock. Leo and Liam were terrified. They screamed whenever she got near and even refused to take bottles from her hands. After just 2 days, she gave up. "I think these children have behavioral issues. They might need medical intervention." The second nanny was younger and more cheerful, but completely untrained. She panicked when one of the boys spit up and had no idea how to calm them. Within a week, 4 different nannies came and went, none lasting more than 3 days. Inside the luxurious home, the twins began to deteriorate. They wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep, wouldn't smile. Diaper rashes, weight loss, and the distant look in their eyes began to terrify Benjamin. For the first time in his life, he felt truly powerless. He called their pediatrician, Dr. Felix Rivera, for an emergency visit. The elderly doctor, who had been with the boys since birth, sighed after examining them. "Benjamin, this is severe separation anxiety. These boys developed a strong emotional bond with someone, and that person is now gone." Benjamin froze. "Can you explain what that means? They're not just physically sick, they're emotionally devastated. Their immune systems are weakened from constant stress. What should have been a minor cold turned into pneumonia because they're emotionally vulnerable." "Doctor?" Rivera set his stethoscope down on the table. "Before she arrived, we were dealing with everything. Allergies, reflux, sleepless nights. Then Emily came and it was like a miracle." Benjamin looked down at his hands. They trembled slightly. I fired her because she bathed them in a metal tub in the yard." Silence filled the room. Dr. Rivera shook his head. "I've seen rich children raised with everything except love. They grow up empty, and I've seen children bathed in buckets who were radiant with joy. You're taking away the only thing that made your children feel safe." That sentence struck Benjamin like a slap to his pride. He didn't respond. He just nodded, thanked the doctor, and left. But that night he couldn't sleep. Leo and Liam cried in turns. No one could soothe them. The 4th nanny, hired just that morning, had already quit by mid-afternoon. Outside, the rain fell gently. Inside the sleek, modern mansion, lights stayed on through the night. Baby cries echoed through the halls, mixed with the exhausted footsteps of a father unraveling. And finally, in the stillness of that night, standing beside his son's crib, watching them shiver with low-grade fever, Benjamin understood. No nanny in the world could replace real love. No one could replace Emily. Dr. Felix Rivera's words haunted Benjamin Carter for days, but his pride and prejudice still kept him from admitting he had made a mistake. Things at home only got worse. The twins barely ate and cried all day. Benjamin was exhausted. His company was still in crisis, and now he was struggling to care for his children on his own. One day, Harold, the gardener, after 3 hours of hearing Leo cry nonstop, walked into Benjamin's office. "Mr. Carter, I need to speak with you." "Not now." "It's about the boys, sir." Benjamin looked up. Harold had worked for the family for 15 years. He had seen Benjamin as a bachelor through his marriage and the birth of the twins. "Make it quick." "You were wrong to fire Emily." "That's none of your business." "Sir, I saw Emily arrive. I saw your wife leave. I saw the boys cry day and night until Emily showed up." Benjamin stopped writing. "Go on." "That girl changed those children's lives. and yours, whether you see it or not. Do you even remember the last time you slept well? Since Emily came, you finally had a full night's rest. But she bathed my children in a metal tub. So what? My grandmother bathed me in a wooden barrel. My mother used a clean kerosene drum. You, when you were a boy visiting your grandmother in Michoacan, you bathed under an outdoor faucet. Benjamin remembered his childhood at Doña Amparo's house, the humble woman who raised 12 kids. The best memories of his life came from that place. Harold continued, Emily didn't harm your sons. She loved them. When the water was cut, she made do without bothering you. She woke up early, bought food with her own money, stayed up late when the kids were sick. She loved them like her own. How do you know? Benjamin asked. Because I watch, and ever since she left, this house has become a nightmare. Benjamin said nothing. Deep down, he knew Harold was right. But I insulted her. She won't come back. Then you need to set aside your pride, go to her, apologize, and hope she's kind enough to forgive you. That night, Benjamin couldn't sleep. The twins took turns crying. Doña Carmen held them uncomfortably, and more than once Benjamin caught her scrolling through her phone while caring for them. By morning, Liam had developed a rough cough. Leo had a high fever. Dr. Felix Rivera came for an emergency house call and gave his diagnosis. The twins are at risk of developing pneumonia due to stress and weakened immunity. They need to be hospitalized immediately. At the hospital, seeing his 2 tiny boys hooked up to IVs, Benjamin finally understood the depth of his mistake. Leo and Liam lay in a private room, finally asleep after receiving IV fluids and fever-reducing medication. But their faces were tense, their tiny bodies curled up in exhaustion. The persistent coughs still rattled in their chests, like they were fighting against something far deeper than illness. Benjamin stood motionless at the foot of their beds, eyes fixed on his sons. This wasn't just about bacteria or a virus. This was grief, hurt, the consequence of a single, devastating decision. They're suffering because of me, he thought, because I pushed away the one person who truly loved them. He remembered the moment yesterday when Liam, half awake, barely whispered, "Emily." Just one word, but it cracked open the wall of pride he'd built so carefully. The twins didn't need another nanny, not a professional replacement. They needed Emily, the one who knew how to calm them, who made their favorite meals, who sang lullabies that made them sleep soundly. Dr. Felix Rivera, the pediatrician who had treated the boys since birth, stepped into the room, quietly observing Benjamin for a long moment. "You've seen the result, haven't you?" he said softly. "These boys aren't sick because of germs. They're heartbroken. It's called severe separation stress, and it's compromising their immune systems." Benjamin nodded slightly. "I know I messed up, doctor. I acted like a fool. What do I do now?" Dr. Rivera placed a hand on his shoulder, voice steady and sincere. "Find her, and don't wait any longer." That afternoon, Benjamin called Harold, the faithful gardener who had worked for the family for over a decade, into his study. "Do you know where Emily is?" Harold was silent for a moment, then gave a quiet nod. "I do. But before I tell you, what exactly are you planning?" Benjamin sat down, his eyes steady and honest. "I want to apologize, not just because the kids need her, but because I owe her that. A real apology. I didn't listen. I thought I was always right." Harold looked up, his gaze firm but hopeful. "Then you should go. She's staying with Mrs. Althea, the old neighbor 3 houses down." "But," he paused, "you can't show up with your wallet and expect that to fix everything. Emily's not that kind of person. If you truly want to make things right, go with your heart, not your money." Benjamin stood, taking a deep breath. "I'm going with the truth, and I just hope it's not too late." As he stepped out of the room, Benjamin knew that for the first time in years, he wasn't heading to close a deal or win a negotiation, but to mend something far more important. And just like that, his journey to redemption had truly begun. Mrs. Althea's house sat quietly behind a wooden fence, draped in purple bougainvillea. Though it was only 3 doors down from Benjamin's estate, today the walk to her doorstep felt like crossing a chasm. His palms were sweating, his heartbeat pounded. He had never felt so small. When he rang the doorbell, the door opened, and Mrs. Althea, sharp-eyed, firm-voiced, looked him straight in the eye. "What do you want?" Benjamin swallowed. I'd like to speak to Emily. You here to offer her money?" "No. I'm here to apologize, to beg her to come back. My boys, they're sick. They need her." She didn't soften, not at first, but after a long pause, she stepped aside. "Go ahead. She's in the back, with the children." As Benjamin stepped through the modest doorway, he immediately sensed something different. The small home was old, but full of life. The smell of toast, the sound of children laughing, and Emily's soft singing drifting in from the backyard. He stepped onto the porch and saw her. Emily was sitting on a wooden chair, cradling a little girl. 2 boys, about 4 and 6, ran in circles near a homemade swing fashioned from rope and a wooden board. She looked up. Time seemed to freeze. "What are you doing here?" Her voice wasn't angry, but guarded and cold. Benjamin stepped forward, hand over his chest, as if steadying his breath. "I came to say I'm sorry. I was wrong. Completely wrong." Emily stood up, still holding the small girl. Her face looked thinner, her eyes tired and darkened. "After what you said to me, you think an apology is enough?" "No, it's not." "I know. I'm not here to justify anything. I'm here to beg for a chance to fix it, not for me. For Leo and Liam." Her eyes flinched at the sound of their names. "How are they?" "In the hospital. Pneumonia," the doctor said. "They're weak because of stress, because they miss you. One of them said your name in his sleep." She covered her mouth, her eyes filled. I thought I didn't matter, that they'd be fine if I left. But Benjamin stepped closer. "You are their world, and mine too." Emily said nothing. The children still played somewhere nearby. But between them stood a wall built from pain. "I'm taking care of 3 orphans here. They need me too. I can't just walk away from them. I'm not asking you to. If you come back, I'll support all 3 kids. Schooling, housing, medical care, everything." She looked at him skeptical. "Are you saying that out of guilt or because it's true?" He placed a hand over his heart. "Because it's true. Because of love. Because of our children." Emily looked down at the little girl in her arms. "I'm not promising to come back, but I want to see the twins. I'll take you now." During the ride to the hospital, they sat mostly in silence, but not a cold silence, the kind that heals. Benjamin didn't need to speak too much, and Emily didn't need to forgive right away. She hesitated, heart pounding, but when she thought of the twins crying alone, she couldn't stay away. She got into the car, not because she had forgiven, but because her love for the children was stronger than her pain. And sometimes, that's all it takes to start over. When Emily stepped into the hospital room, the twins were fast asleep, their tiny bodies curled up like fallen leaves resting on the bed. But within seconds, as if sensing something deep and instinctual, Liam stirred. Then Leo shifted. And when both sets of eyes opened to see the familiar face before them, something miraculous happened. No words were needed. No explanation. The twins burst into tears and reached for Emily, sobbing in her arms as though the pain of the past few days had built up solely for this moment. She held them tightly, gently patting their backs, tears falling silently into their soft hair. The cold hospital room warmed instantly. not by temperature, but by something nameless and sacred. A mother's love, not born from blood, but from heart. Benjamin stood behind her, silent. He had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. After the twins were discharged, Emily returned to the estate, not as an employee, but as a mother. Benjamin kept his promise. He bought her a small cottage just beside the main house, a garden, a warm kitchen, and enough space for the 3 orphans she cared for, Noah, Lily, and Ava. 2 homes now stood side by side, connected by a pebble path. The children ran freely between them, laughter echoing every morning like wind chimes. Leo and Liam became shadows of Noah, Lily, and Ava, bonded not by blood, but by shared love. At first, Emily stayed cautious. She kept a gentle emotional distance, not wanting their relationship to be built on pity or gratitude. Benjamin understood. He didn't rush. He spent time with the kids, fixed broken toys, learned to cook beside her, and listened, truly listened. Over time, the distance melted. One evening, as the family sat beneath the bougainvillea for dinner, Benjamin handed Emily a drawing from Lily. 5 stick-figure children holding hands beneath a roof with 2 big red hearts. She said, "This is our house. 2 grown-ups, 5 kids. 2." Benjamin smiled softly. Emily looked at the picture, eyes glistening. "Emily, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why have you spent your whole life caring for other people's children? What about your own life?" Emily paused for a moment before answering. "When my parents died, I was only 15. I had to take care of my younger sister. I realized that caring for children gave me a sense of purpose." "You never wanted children of your own?" "Of course I did, but I've never had the chance to truly fall in love with anyone. I was always too busy taking care of others." "Don't you feel like you're being taken advantage of?" "Benjamin, when you genuinely love children, there's no such thing as being used. The love they give back is worth more than any money. That must be why you cared for Leo and Liam so well. I loved them from the very first time I saw them. They felt like 2 abandoned souls, and I needed to feel like a mother." "Are you happy?" Benjamin asked. "Raising 5 children with no life of your own?" Emily looked out at the yard where the 5 children were playing joyfully. Leo was toddling toward Liam. Noah was helping Bernardo fly a kite. Lily had just woken up and was reaching her little hands toward Emily. "Mr. Carter, this is my life. This is my family. There's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be." Benjamin smiled. At last he understood. Happiness isn't about how much you have, but about how much you love, and how deeply you are loved in return. Little by little, she let him help, fixing a creaky door hinge one day, dropping off groceries the next, sitting on the porch, watching the kids run wild in the yard. First it was a few minutes, then hours. No declarations, no romantic gestures, just quiet moments, sipping tea, laughing about Leo's mosquito bites or Ava's new babbles. Each conversation a brick, slowly rebuilding what had once shattered. Emily was still cautious, but the fear of being hurt was slowly replaced by something else, the feeling of safety. She started smiling more when he was near. Let him help wash the dishes. And once, when the kids dozed off in the yard, she rested her head on his shoulder without realizing it. He didn't move. He just stayed still, letting the wind carry the scent of her hair through the quiet beating of his heart. One night, Lily came down with a fever. Emily panicked, couldn't reach the doctor. Benjamin didn't hesitate. He scooped Lily into his arms and drove them to the ER. He stayed the entire 3 hours, silent, waiting. Emily sat beside him, hands trembling, eyes swollen. "You didn't have to do all this," she whispered. He reached for her hand, gently squeezed. "You're not alone. I'm here. Always." For the first time, she cried in front of him. After that night, the distance between them disappeared. Emily no longer refused help. Benjamin no longer tiptoed. The children began treating them as one. One morning, while eating breakfast outside, Noah looked up and asked, "What are you and Mr. Ben to each other?" Emily hesitated. Benjamin smiled. "We're learning to become a family." Noah nodded, then turned to Leo. "That means we'll get even more yummy food?" Everyone laughed. Emily made no promises. Benjamin asked for none, but their daily presence, their growing ease, was their clearest form of love. A new kind of family was forming, not yet defined, but quietly growing. Soon after, they officially became a family, not with a grand wedding, but with a quiet garden ceremony where 6 children wore white, carried wildflowers, and sang a simple song about home. Emily wore a plain white dress. Benjamin tucked a jasmine blossom into her hair. They made vows, not dramatic ones, but real ones. "I'll listen to you every day. I'll hold your hand when you feel weak." No one cried that day. All the tears had already fallen in the lonely nights, the days of separation. Now there was only laughter and the quiet rhythm of peaceful hearts. A new family had formed, imperfect, unconventional, but real, and most of all, full of love. 1 year after the quiet garden ceremony filled with flowers and laughter, Emily and Benjamin's family had changed, not in showy ways, but in the quiet growth of everyday love. Emily was pregnant. She found out on an early autumn morning while preparing breakfast for 6 children in the cozy kitchen. Her hands trembled as she held the test result. And in that quiet moment, she cried. Not from fear, but from joy so overwhelming she could hardly believe this was her life. Benjamin held her for a long time when she showed him the test. No words, just a look full of gratitude and a gentle squeeze that made her feel safer than she ever had. She gave birth to a baby girl on a soft, rainy morning. All 6 children sat outside the delivery room, bouncing with anticipation. When the first cry rang out, Lily jumped up, Noah clapped, and Leo and Liam shouted, "The baby is here!" They named her Hope, because that's exactly what she was. Hope, born from healed wounds. The missing piece in a picture none of them had ever dared to dream. Emily bathed Hope in the same old metal tub that once got her fired, the same one that symbolized misunderstanding and judgment. But now it symbolized beginnings, love, redemption. Hope giggled, kicking her tiny feet in the warm water, and her laughter echoed through the house like music they all needed after a long journey. Benjamin spent more time at home now. He worked remotely, drove the kids to school, changed Hope's diapers at night, and read bedtime stories with the kind of silly voices that made the children laugh endlessly. Every evening they ate around a long table Benjamin had built himself, big enough for 8, always with space for guests. Their home was never silent, always filled with children's voices, Emily's beginner guitar chords, and the laughter of 2 people who once lived in separate worlds, now building one together. "I never thought I'd have a family like this," Benjamin said one night, Hope sleeping on his chest. Emily rested her head on his shoulder. "Me neither, but we didn't give up." And maybe that's what made it real? Their family wasn't perfect. There were still days when the kids argued, dinner burned, or Benjamin came home drained from work. But through it all, they came back to each other. Because they hadn't just built a house. They had rebuilt their hearts. 10 years later, the Silver Hills estate had changed, not in its architecture, but in the atmosphere inside. The once cold gray walls were now painted a warm cream. Windows stayed open to let in music, laughter, and the echo of running footsteps down the halls. Emily stood in the kitchen, her hair now longer, with a few silver strands near her temples. She was baking cookies for Leo and Liam's 10th birthday. On the kitchen table sat a handwritten card. "Thank you, Mom, for never giving up on us." She paused, pressing a hand to her chest. With every passing year, her heart had grown softer. not from weakness, but because the old scars had healed into new skin, and love had deepened. Benjamin entered, still wearing that familiar gentle smile. He kissed her cheek, and together they loaded cookies onto a tray. In their eyes there were no storms left, only shared peace and silent understanding. The children had grown. Lily was in high school, dreaming of becoming a preschool teacher. Noah loved computers and was learning to code. Ava, the little girl once in Emily's arms when Benjamin came looking, was now a bright-eyed teen, always carrying her camera. Leo and Liam were still the dynamic duo, full of mischief but always the first to hug their mom at night and whisper, "We love you so much." And Hope, their youngest, had just turned 9. She loved drawing and could sit for hours under the old oak tree, sketching memories of their backyard. Their family was far from perfect. There were arguments, bad test scores, and the occasional burnt dinner. But love never left the house. Because all the kids had grown up knowing that love wasn't measured in money, but in patience, in second chances, and in the promise that no one ever walked away. One autumn afternoon, Emily sat under the tree with Hope, watching the sunset paint the backyard in gold. "Mom," Hope asked, "did you ever think you'd have a family like this?" Emily smiled. "Never. I once thought I'd be alone forever. But then I met all of you, and my heart stopped being just mine." Hope nodded and kept drawing. "So, if one day I feel sad, I just need to find someone to love?" Emily placed a hand gently on her daughter's shoulder. "Not just to love, but to give love, because that's the one thing that gets fuller the more you give it away." That night, the whole family gathered around the dinner table. Nothing fancy, nothing grand, just grateful eyes, warm laughter, and hands reaching across to hold each other. Love doesn't always need big words. It just needs to be real. And that was the legacy Emily and Benjamin left behind. Not wealth or fame, but a home where every heart was welcomed, every mistake could be redeemed, and every child knew, "You are worthy of being loved."